If I look back, I can tell you the age and the year that I technically should have left my marriage. I'm not happy, I'm unfulfilled, I'm living in fear, I'm living someone else's dream, which is now my nightmare. And I was turning 40 years old, and I had a coach who said, what would you be willing to lose? And the first thought that came to me was my marriage.
Although you were with your husband for over 19 years, you decided to leave and start again in your 40s. Now, while so many of us women live in quiet desperation, in just unhappy marriages for the rest of our lives, you didn't. So how on earth did you not get trapped and eventually have the courage to leave?
It wasn't that I just woke up and one day got the courage. I believe that a series of things had happened over the years, and there were many years that I really should have left and I didn't. Because in those seasons, I didn't have the courage yet, I didn't have the conviction, and I was still very much held to this idea that this is what my life was supposed to be. I wanted to be married and have the, beautiful Christmas cards and the PJs for Christmas time on Instagram and all that. And I was romanticizing reality, meaning I did have those parts, but there were many other parts that just did not feel good. They did not serve me. They did not honor me. They did not honor the vows. They did not respect me. And I got to a point in 2021, I was turning 40 years old. And I had a coach who said, what would you be willing to lose to have everything that you believe God has called you to have? And the first thought that came to me was my marriage. If I was going to be radically honest, if I was going to not try to romanticize or make something what it just wasn't, it would be my marriage. And I still didn't honor it. And I have a dream. And Lisa, I wake up from the dream, and I've always been a dreamer, but I would dismiss it. But I wake up from the dream, and what I sense is, and what I write down, I'm a big journaler, I put notes in my phone is, God, if you're telling me that my marriage is up, you have to confirm it for me in no uncertain terms. And I need to know that my daughter will be protected. I want to make sure that I live with no regrets. I close the phone, I go back to sleep. And a series of things happened that just confirmed for me conversations with my daughter, and then just things that were coming to light about my former husband. And I was like, this is it. I've been released. But it was just me finally saying that one line, that one question, what would you be willing to lose? And the thing that I learned about that term is not that you want to lose. It's not that you will lose, but what it taught me is in order to have radical honesty, I had to release the attachment to what I thought other people could say, to maybe a dream that I once had, a dream that I had in my 20s. I had to release the attachment and just surrender. And I did that in many areas of my life. Not all things were lost, the things that were still aligned with me, but the things that were no longer aligned and didn't serve me, I had to be willing to release. And my marriage was one of the big things. And it was absolutely positively the best thing I could have done for myself, for my child, and for my future.
All right, girl. We're now going to go deep in everything that you just said, because there's so much value there. But a lot of us overlook a lot of the things that you just said. And that is what ends up leading to us leading a life where we're in our 80s, we're in our 90s, and we look back and we're like, I can't believe that I just stayed, or I can't believe that this was my life. And so the trap that you said where you had the dream, or not the literal dream, right? But the idea of what having a husband and having a family looked like. I think that that's a trap that so many of us get into. And the idea of letting go of that dream is just so big that we would rather stay in the known of the mediocre than we would to acknowledge this isn't the dream that we had wished for. What other traps did you find yourself in that kept you there for those few years that keep most people for their entire lives?
First of all, I would say I recorded an episode called Dream a New Dream. And one of the big things about that is sometimes we think that a dream that we have is supposed to be for a lifetime, and some dreams are just for a season. And the idea that oh, I have to stay this out and take it to the tape, no matter how it makes me feel, no matter how unfulfilled I am, no matter how dishonored or disrespected I am, I have to stick to the dream. And it was coming to the conclusion that I have a right to dream a new dream. I have a right to see new possibilities for myself. I have a right to be loved how I desire to be loved. I don't have to just take what somebody else wants to give me and say, well, this is it because this is the dream. The dream that I had to marry this man in particular and start a family with him began when I was 22 years old. 18 years later, I have a right to dream a new dream. And so I think a lot of us get caught up in that. I got to live in my dream. There were many years that we did have a great relationship, that we raised a wonderful child. I did the things, but now I get to allow my dreams to evolve. It's that simple, right? But we do make it really complicated. So the first thing for me was understanding I got to experience the dream. Now it's just time to dream a new one. Now it's just time to dream a new one. Another thing is, I would say it's the words that we speak. And I've said this to you many times. What we verbalize, we magnify, right, in our own lives, and we magnetize. And so I believe the first time I was here on Women of Impact, there's a line that my former husband and I used to say from the beginning, and it was no plan B. No plan B. And it sounded so noble, and it kept me so faithful and so loyal because in my mind, no plan B. And we would say that to each other, no matter his indiscretions, no matter what he went on to do, we would no plan B. And then it hit me at 40 years old. No plan B was only designed to serve him. No plan B never served me because I didn't do those things. I was being the best wife I could be. And I'm not saying that I was perfect, but I definitely held to my vows, you know? And so it was recognizing all of these cute little mantras and quotes and one-liners that I picked up in church and in sermons and in books and seeing things online. And I was holding to words that were literally used to weaponize the way I thought marriage was supposed to look, right? I'm like, that doesn't really serve me at all. So it was also examining the language that I had picked up in different places. It was examining my faith. I, consider myself Christian. And you know this about me, like my faith, I have huge faith. I have crazy faith. My life has been built on a bunch of illogical moves that only faith could do, right? But that same faith in many ways was weaponized because I grew up in churches hearing that once people get married, that's it. God hates divorce. You can't do this, you can't do that. And so even when we would go to marriage counseling, the counselors would dismiss almost his behavior or let him just talk himself out of it in favor of telling me that I needed to pray more and I needed to fast more and I needed to be more diligent. Meanwhile, I am the one praying, fasting, doing all the things at church, on and on and on. So in one sense, I will never weaponize today's wisdom on former versions of myself. I'm grateful for the 33-year-old version of myself that didn't leave, but she got deeper into therapy. I'm grateful for the 35-year-old version of myself that didn't leave, but she really got deeper into her prayer life. I'm grateful for the version of me that started the Redefining Wealth podcast because it was in interviewing all these people, light bulbs started to come on and I'm reading all of these books and I'm taking in all of this information. And those were the things that helped me become strong enough to get the courage and conviction to say enough is enough, right? So I will never look back and say, you should have done this and you wasted these years. No, because I wouldn't be this Patrice Washington without all of those experiences. It's why I have the compassion that I have. It's why I do what I do. It's why I love on women the way that I do. And it's why I can say, I know how you feel. I've been there, done that. Like, let me tell you how I navigated that season. So I'll never regret any of that. But those were the things, allowing myself to dream a new dream. It was examining my own language and making sure that I wasn't using my voice to give life to ideologies and beliefs and ideas that didn't serve me. And then, also examining my faith and saying, like, Do you really believe that a God that loves you would want you to be treated this way? No matter what other people have said over the years, no matter what other people have tried to say, what the Bible says, what this says, I believe that the God that loves me would never want his daughter to be treated in this way. Not the way that I love people. And you know me personally, not the way that I take care of people. This cannot be what he wants for me for another 18 years. So I did the thing.
I love the honesty that you bring to everything that you say, because it's not that you're dismissing your culture or your religion or your beliefs. It's just like, hang on, this just didn't serve me, and this is where it was leading to. And so it doesn't mean you have to walk away from your faith, but in identifying the messaging that you're getting and then reframing it to suit and serve you is so powerful. Talk to me also about the identity thing, because I think that this is also something that a lot of us women will struggle with. So either A, it's like, well, I'm a great wife, the identity of being a good Christian, where now maybe you're going to get the backlash. Maybe it's the identity of being a good daughter, and so you want to make your father proud. A mother, like what about having to talk to your daughter about getting a divorce, going from we to I, from an identity perspective. All of these things, I think, are things that hold people back. And especially you, for somebody that's in the public eye, people know your marriage. You've spoken about how amazing your marriage is, that your husband was the person that really gave you the emotional stability when you were younger and you didn't have it and you felt so insecure about yourself. So you've built this identity of being with this man. And that can be something that, forget about everything else that you always beautifully laid out. That identity piece can also be the thing that keeps people stuck. How did you look at your identity and be willing to evolve your identity based on what your dreams had evolved into?
So after my coach asked me the question, what would I be willing to lose? I actually expanded upon that practice, because I realized as I was writing things out and doing it, it wasn't just about releasing things. It was, I would also have to learn to lose beliefs and behaviors, sometimes possessions, and then people, right? And so I had to lose the belief that the only way that I could be received is if I was a married woman. I had to lose the belief that my daughter would somehow fall apart if she wasn't in a 2-parent household. I had to lose a lot of beliefs that I had developed about how we had evolved and where we had gotten, right? And what me making a choice to do something different, could actually do. And so it was a series of things, but I would encourage anyone to not just think about the tangible things. It's also a lot of the intangible, right? Like that identity piece. And then I had to reclaim what that could look like in and out of marriage. I'm a phenomenal mother. I have a wonderful relationship with my daughter. She is the light of my life. When she was a little kid, people would say, oh, but you're not going to like her when she's a teenager. And I would say, I respect if that was your experience with your children, but I don't receive that. I wouldn't let people project that onto me. And Reagan is 16 now, soon to be 17. And we have the best relationship, and I love her more every day. And so I don't need to be married to her father for me to still parent and love her and have the friendship that I have with her. And I just start untangling and asking myself, what are you making this mean? What are you making this mean? And every time it came down to something that could potentially make me want to run back, I have this practice of what if versus what is. I would say, okay, well, what if that is the thing? Okay, the if is the fear. It's all the noise that we create. It's all the stories we tell. But the is, let's be real. Like, there's so many possibilities for any scenario that you can go down. Why would you keep choosing the possibilities that don't serve you? Why would you keep choosing like the gloom and doom? Choose the best case scenario, and that's what you lead with. That's the energy that you bring. So when people go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you got a divorce, I'm like, I am well. I'm well. You don't have to be sorry. That was a season of my life. And to your point about I had built him up, I also had learned to normalize poor behavior. So it doesn't mean that the things that I said at that time were not true. They were very true for me in that moment. But as I've evolved, as I've grown, as I've learned, as I've discovered things and then held those things up to where I was in this moment, it's like, yeah, I don't like to be treated that way. I don't like this. And I start to get the guts to say that. I don't like this. A lot of times we're just normalizing or romanticizing or rationing out lies. We're rationalizing because I grew up in a family full of women who had never been married. They just had babies. So for me, it was already a big thing to be married in my family. I was one of the only women in my family, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunts, all first cousins, all female, no one married, just children. So a part of that was like, well, I have to stay. I'm the one. I have to be the example for the family, So yeah, this thing is occurring, but look at this huge house I live in. Look at all the gifts that I get. Look at all these things. They're apology gifts, but they're gifts, expensive. But it had been applauded because when I would share with people, right? Because it wasn't every day. It's like every other year, a blow up of some kind. Yeah. But it would be applauded. Oh my gosh, you got another Range Rover with a huge bow. Didn't you just get a Range Rover 2 years ago? Didn't you just get it? So, oh my God, it's applauded. My friends who were not married in their 30s, they're like, but at least you're married. My girlfriends who really wanted to have children, but look at your beautiful daughter. Look at your family. And it's very easy to just be caught up in that and try to focus on the 80% that looks really good. But if 20% just does not feel good and does not feel right, eventually that you're going to implode.
Or I think so many of us try to ignore that 20%, especially when you're such a strong, badass woman.
I know you know Dr. Tama. I love Dr. Tama Bryant. She's been on my show too. And I was sitting on the beach, March 15th, it was my birthday, 2022. And I got the text from my attorney that my divorce papers had been served. And I was reading her book. I went to Costa Rica by myself and I was reading her book. And there's a part in the book where she says, high achieving women often think because they're so used to fixing and making things happen. I'm paraphrasing, but she says they're so used to being the ones that make things happen and things always go in their way that even in bad relationships, they have overconfidence. They literally think they can fix it because everything that I put my hand to,
you make happen.
I make it happen. So if I, again, pray harder, if I do more fasting, if I show up in this way, if I talk with this tone, if I move about this way, if I do the things, then I will fix him. That's what we think because I'm used to fixing things all around me and it always works. And she said, it's not that we have low self-esteem, we have overconfidence. That was a game changer. Reading that would set me free because it showed me how many high achieving women who can use their voice. Like I have a big voice. You see me speak on stage many times, right? But I found myself quieting my voice in a space where it should have been safe to use it and express like what I need, want, and desire out of this, marriage, out of this relationship as well. But instead of that, I found myself walking on eggshells quite a bit and going, well, I don't want to rock the boat. He's not going to understand. He doesn't want to understand. So I would, again, rationalize why it made sense for me to just is it a big deal? People would say, choose your battles, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go. So then everything starts to become well, this isn't that huge. I just should choose my battles. This isn't a big deal. Let me just brush that to the side. Let me choose my battles. Again, examining words that I would use to justify or rationalize. And I start going, nope, no more of that.
And over time, I assume that you even said, like, you started to lose your voice because you say, well, there's no point in me speaking out. Well, it's no point in rocking the boat. And over time, it becomes that little chip. My best analogy, I'm sure my audience hates me for always using this, but it just hits me so hard, is have you ever seen a water drip on a rock? Over and over. Water can be soft. Water can be, quenching. Water can be amazing. But over time, on a rock, just that drip, the rock starts to change its shape. And when I think about you saying, it's just not worth it. Nah, it's not worth rocking the boat. That's a drip. Now having that rock as being your voice, right? What happens is it starts to change its shape. You no longer have a voice. So you said the 5 beliefs that actually gave you your voice back. Number 1 was the voice God gave me was situational. Talk to me about that.
I have this powerful voice. I've always known that. I can get on stage and move people to laughter or tears, right? I use my voice for good, always. And then getting into a space where all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this voice needs to be dimmed or quieted. No, my voice is not situational. The powerful voice that I was given should be used professionally and personally. Why would it only be used for y'all and not used for me? You can tell I live in Atlanta now, right? Why would it be used just to serve and support other people and then somehow become a disservice to me? And anyone who's trying to make me feel like my voice is a problem is the problem. I mean, that's the reality, because I have found that the only people who have a problem with you voicing your governing decisions and, sharing what your concerns are, your boundaries, are people who banked on you never having any. They banked on you never saying anything, and they try to create an environment where you don't feel free to say anything. But the same voice that is very clear in communicating with others, it's not all of a sudden now you don't understand what I'm saying. You're choosing to be. You're being willfully ignorant. You understand what I'm saying because this same voice that goes out there and speaks to millions of people, this same voice works in here. Now, maybe it's talking to the wrong person, but it works. And that's the belief I had to shift. Like, no, this voice that God gave me is not situational. It's not only for out there. It's for everywhere that I am.
Freaking love that. All right, number 2, being okay with others not agreeing, but you actually put, my voice isn't only valuable when there is a group validation or consensus.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, this whole journey for me has really brought up a lot of that. Like, I've been on different interviews and I've had people talk to me about, life after divorce and all this stuff. And the way that people think that you care if they agree with you or not, I literally do not care about whether you agree with me. I will not dumb down my desires ever again in life to make someone else happy. I don't need a group consensus. I go within, I go above, and that's it. And I'm very clear about that. And many of us, especially like the women that I coach, I hear it over and over again. Well, my parents didn't really agree with me pursuing that path, and so didn't agree. So you pursued a path that has now made you miserable. Because 2 or 3 other people said that was the thing to do. How does that really sound? Like, how does that really feel? And why do we think that everyone else needs to agree with what we need, want, and desire? I don't need a group consensus.
I kind of liken it to, and I'm being a little jokey, but I really mean it. You really want a 6-pack, but you keep eating ice cream. Because the consensus, just people pleasing in that moment, it feels good. Everyone's patting you on the back. Like, it's not like you're pretending it feels good. It actually feels good. When your parent can turn around to you and say, I'm so proud of you. And everyone looks at you like, oh my God, you're so lucky. Like, that feels good.
You know what feels better? Honoring your choice and allowing people to see how it evolves.
And I 1000% agree. But here's the problem. There's an uncomfortability in order to get the skill set that allows you to do it. So that's why I said you want the 6-pack. You want to get to that point where you can feel so damn good about speaking your truth and other people don't agree and you can still be strong in your ideas. Like, that's amazing. But that moment between the uncomfortableness and then getting there, people don't want that. Yeah. And so we go for the ice cream, metaphorically, in the temporary because it's easier and it's more satisfying. But to your point, if you're just strong, if you have conviction in yourself, then that becomes the thing that gives you, that fills you up. But how the hell do you get there? If you're struggling to find the energy just to do the things that you love, or you feel like that fogginess in the brain just won't lift, a lot of these symptoms actually stem from a minerals deficiency that is super common and also totally solvable, which is why I'm absolutely obsessed and love and take B mineral liquid supplements every single day. And I just absolutely love how simple it is, guys, because you don't need a kitchen full of mineral supplements. You just need one small serving per day, and that is it. So guys, I really, truly recommend that you give Beam Minerals a try right now. Head over to beamminerals.com and enter code NYBBS for Nurture Your Bad Bitch Soul at checkout for 20% off your first order. That's beamminerals.com and enter code NYBBS. Nurture Your Bad Bitch Soul at checkout for 20% off your first order.
So, at Redefining Wealth, we talk about wealth is not just money and material possessions. So usually when people stumble upon me, they think I'm going to talk about budgets and credit reports and stuff, right? And then they're like, psych, no, we're not doing that at all. Ooh, I just showed my age, when I said psych. So
I'm with you there, gal.
So we talk about all these other parts of life that actually impact how you show up with your finances. And I think it's really the step-by-step decisions. I think that it's a muscle that you build. And the more that you get clear and develop the confidence in small decisions and then medium-sized decisions, whatever you might call that, then you have the conviction to do it with bigger things. That's why I've been in the practice of doing what I do with the pillars for several years. And like I said, if I look back, I can tell you the age and the year that I technically should have left my marriage. Several different points, but I had not built the muscle up yet because I hadn't been practicing with even the smaller things. An example I'll give you seems really simple about using your voice is I took my daughter Reagan to get a massage when she was, I don't know, maybe 10 years old or something like that. And now for me, I used to I get bruised really easily. And so I'm doing massages for relaxation. I'm not a deep tissue, go all the way in, cause I'm gonna hate that and feel bruised the next day. Well, we get this mother-daughter massage and my massage therapist is going in and I'm like in my head, right? I don't know, 36 maybe. I'm in my head and I'm like, oh, I don't really like this. I'm waiting for them to ask me, how is it? They check in with you. I'm laying there after having, I don't know how many massages in my life, dozens and dozens of massages. And I'm laying there and I'm waiting for them to ask, how is it? So then I could address a little lighter, less pressure. And I hear Reagan say, excuse me, no. She's like 10.
So much.
She was like 10, 11. She's like, no, can you do that different? I don't like that. She just speaks up and she gets what she wants immediately. And in that moment, my 10, 11-year-old child teaches me at 36, 37 years old that I have a track record of knowing what I want, but not being willing to give voice to what I want. Now, I have raised her to speak her voice. I was raised and told to be quiet. And so now, even as a speaker and a television personality and a person who gets paid to use their voice in personal settings, I still am questioning if it's time. And that experience was a trigger for me, no, use your voice. So then I say, yes, less pressure, right? And I literally have to channel for years. For a few years there at the nail salon, I wouldn't like something. I remember how many times I had just left not happy because I'm like, oh, it's not the biggest deal. Choose your battles. Mm-hmm. They're just nails. It's not a big deal, but I'm paying for it and I should get what I want. Hair salon. There's all these little instances where I was just in the habit and pattern and cycle of not speaking up and not using my voice when it was personal. But Reagan teaching me that in that moment, right? I started to build the muscle. So from that time on, when I didn't like something, any service provider, the house cleaner, anything, excuse me, because you know what I learned? Being honest doesn't have to be nasty. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us fear radical honesty because we think that that means that we have to leave people without their dignity. It's not true. We can be radically honest and leave people with their dignity. It's just the tone. It's the delivery. Like, I'm just genuinely a cool person. Like, I'm just a nice person. I speak to everybody. I smile at everybody. So why, when it's time to be radically honest and say I don't like something or something is not serving me, why do I clam up? Like, that means they're not going to like me. They're going to think I'm a bitch. They're going to think that I'm high maintenance. They're going to think. And so you get in your head with all these things. But Reagan taught me that day, speak up, ask for what you want. And so because I started to build that muscle at the hair salon, at the nail salon, with the massage therapist, with the house clean, on all these different ways, it kept growing. And so when it came to business stuff, brand negotiations, brand deals, speaking contracts, all this stuff, it kept going. You know what also kept increasing? My income. So it was never the money. The money was always available to me in all these different ways. Me learning to speak up at the nail salon ended up being how I could speak up for my brand deals and my speaking contracts and my media contracts and get double what some of the other people on set were getting, because I had started to build the muscle and it carried over into every area of my life. So by 2022, when it was time to file for divorce, the muscle had been built.
God, that makes so much sense. Okay, I'd love to go through what else you did to really gain your voice back. And the story you said about Reagan really hit me. So much of this is taught, I think, right? Whereas like we were taught when we were younger, we were at the generation where it's like little girls are meant to be seen, not heard. And I got that. I got patted on the head for talking up, for speaking up. So it definitely is the muscle that we've either learned or not learned. But what's really interesting is that I think a lot of us may then learn to speak up to strangers, but still don't have the confidence to speak up in our own relationship, or may find the confidence to speak up in our business. Like, it's actually much easier for me to make decisions, command respect, walk into a room with confidence in business than it is in my personal life. And I've always like processed that and like really tried to think about why that is. And I think a lot of us women do get trapped there, where it's like we're seen in a certain aspect of being like strong and badass. And they think that that means that equates to everything else in your life. And so I'd love to now go through the third thing, because I think so many of us women do find this problem of how do we find our voice, or how do we get our voice back? So the number 3 is when I speak, chains break. What do you mean by that?
Just recognizing that my voice matters. And when I speak, I have the power to transform things in my own life and things, for other people. For years, I was 13 and I was in a debutante, and you had to have a talent. And I was petrified because I did not feel like I had any talent. I played sports, but what am I supposed to do? Come in here and dribble a basketball in my dress? Like what, people were playing the piano. They were, playing instruments. They were twirling batons. They were doing all of these things. And all of the weeks leading up, they kept pressuring me. What is going to be your talent? What is going to be your talent? And I'm like, I don't have a talent. I don't have anything. I don't have anything. And maybe a few days before, I decided that I would do like a speech. And so everyone does their baton twirling and flipping and gymnastics and playing instruments. And then here I come with my speech. And I'm like, I'm just going to give a speech. I was 13 years old. And I give this speech and I get a standing ovation.
Wow.
And I thought they were just trying to be nice. I thought they were taking pity on me because I didn't really have a talent. But when I learned that, looking back over my life, that people have always been moved by my words since I was a little kid, since I was 13 years old doing the debutante, or 5 years old doing the pageant, the Christmas pageant at church or something. And that just means that I have a responsibility to show up and use my voice, because when I speak, chains break. And I don't think that that's just to me. I think that whenever we show up as authentically as we can, and with the right heart and the right intention, the right spirit, we literally have the power to change other people's lives. Chains break, strongholds break. We're sitting here talking now. Someone is listening and they're going, oh my gosh, this is speaking directly to me. I know exactly what she's saying. I feel this so much. That's a chain breaking, because she knows that if something has changed for me, if I can leave an 18-year relationship and sit here smiling and thriving. And when I came in, what did I tell you? I am in the best place of my life. I absolutely love who I am, where I am, what I do, who I get to do it with. I absolutely love this season of my life. There's a chain breaking. For someone who is watching right now, there is a chain breaking, because she's like, God, if I just got radical honesty and said, I'm willing to lose this in order to have everything that might be available to me. If she did it, I can do it. Chains break. If I didn't come here and say that, there would still be someone going in circles, spiraling in cycles of confusion, thinking that this is not available to them. And it absolutely is.
Every time I speak to you, you break my chains, girl. Like, it's so powerful, honestly. I love it. All right, number 4, anyone annoyed by my voice has a choice.
Baby. Ooh.
I love this one.
Anyone annoyed by my voice? You know, when I first got in radio, before I got in radio, I had pitched a segment. This is around 2012. I pitched a segment to a radio station in the Midwest. It was to do like a Money Minute segment. And they didn't reply. We kept following up, and they sent us an email. And the email said that my voice was hideous and not made for radio. And I was like, damn, hideous? That's wild. Yeah. Like, hideous. And it was a little deflating, right? It was very deflating. I'm like, dang, what the heck? And then a few weeks later, I run into a friend who is also in the personal finance space at the time. His name was Clyde Anderson. He was a financial consultant on CNN. And he's talking about a radio show concept. We decided to join forces and create a radio show. And we paid to put it on air in Atlanta, and had a producer, and we're doing our segments, and people are tuning in from all over and loving it. And I continued on anyway. Like, if you don't like it, somebody else will. No problem. 2014, I go on the Steve Harvey Show, January. I'm there to promote my second book, Real Money Answers for Every Woman. And it's supposed to be a one-time interview. Mm-hmm. And I end up getting asked back a couple weeks later. And then it goes so well, they asked me back a few weeks later. And by March or April, Steve says on air, you should just come every week. I said, I think I should. I was on the Steve Harvey Show, nationally syndicated radio, for 4 years, every single week. And do you know what station had to pick it up?
Was it the station you applied for? Oh my God, that's amazing.
The station in the Midwest where the program manager said my voice was hideous. He had to end up, if he was still there, listening to my voice every single week in my segment. It is okay if you are not rocking with me, feeling my voice. You have a choice, but that doesn't make my voice not valid.
And that's so on point, because we do think that's what it means. Mm-hmm. We think that if you don't like it, or if you don't like what I'm saying, that it's not valid. And we internalize that person's opinion as fact.
Mm-hmm. And who knows where that could have come from? Maybe I sounded like his ex-wife. Maybe I sounded like his mother that he doesn't get along with. Maybe I look like someone that, you know, it's just a bad vibe. I don't know. But whatever that is, to internalize that, I think about that. Like, look at my career, a podcast now for almost 7 years. Almost 19 million downloads, right? Somebody likes this voice, because somebody is not annoyed by the voice. They are intrigued by the message. If I would have allowed one person's opinion in 2012 to distract or deter me from what I felt like I was being called to do, I wouldn't even know you. I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't have this incredible life that I have 12 years later, right? And a lot of us do that. We dismiss and diminish our voice because one person said. And I still get people who say crazy things to me. And this is what I've discerned. Everyone who's in my audience is not my assignment. The true definition of audience is an assembly of onlookers. That's the definition of audience, an assembly of onlookers. There's a difference between people who are just onlookers and people that I was born to lock arms with. And we are assigned to do life together in some capacity, in some way. Our voices matter, but we can't get it twisted and think they're supposed to matter to everyone. I'm not here for everyone. I wasn't assigned to everyone, and I'm completely okay with that.
Oh God, I love that so much. And for me, I think I don't do it anymore, but like I just blanket statement, I want everyone to like me and everyone to approve of me. And that isn't the real world, A. B, if you go out into the world like that, you end up living a life or having things that don't actually resonate with who you want to be. And so I hear you very much saying it's like you can't be everything to everybody.
And it's also why we can't be radically honest. Because we don't want to disappoint this huge population of people that we've given access, right? In ways that they really shouldn't have access. When I announced my divorce, I literally had people emailing me and telling me they were disappointed in me.
Oh, yeah.
Emailing me.
People you don't even know.
That I don't know personally to tell me that they were disappointed in my decision to free myself. And I responded, I'm sorry that you applaud longevity and you are not acknowledging the fact that I have said that there was too much toxicity in this for me. You applaud longevity. That's your business. My grandparents were married for 56 years. I bet one of them was miserable.
Yeah, were they happily married?
Were they happily married? I don't get a prize for saying, oh, I was so-and-so's wife for 36 years. There's no prize at the end for me to say that I stayed in something and endured long suffering so that I could get some, validation from you at the end of my life. When I'm in my prayer room by myself, you're not there. When I'm crying myself to sleep, you're not there. When I'm needing to really make these huge decisions for myself, for my child, for my future, you're nowhere to be found. So you don't have the right to slide into my DMs or to email me with your opinion because you used to like my pictures on Instagram. The audacity. And when I announced my, separation, the episode was called Dream a New Dream. I also told my audience, I know y'all love to pray. Do not pray for us to reconcile. It's not your business, and that's not what I'm asking for. I'm very clear about what I need to do next. And that was so good because it really kept people from trying to push their will and their thoughts and their ideas on me. I didn't ask you. I pray that Reagan is safe and that she has wonderful co-parents who can separate consciously and make sure that we do the best for her. But don't you be praying about reconciliation. That's not your business.
How do you have the confidence to say that? I love it. And that's just one of so many things that I admire and love about you. But there are a lot of people listening right now like, oh my God, I could never have the courage to say that. And what they do is they stay silent. And then people keep coming at them, whether it's family, if you're not in the public eye, right? People are just like, oh, but give him another chance. He's so lovely. Oh my God. But what about, on and on and on. And so that voice where you maybe were stronger originally, and you're like, no, this is the right thing for me. I know that I need to do this. And every so often over time, that external voice or those other people's voices starts to sway your own opinion. I love that you're like, this is my decision. No, ma'am, you don't come over to my side of the street. How do you have that courage and audacity? And I say that in a beautiful word, the audacity to freaking stand up for yourself, which I love. What are the things that you've done in order to be strong in your conviction like that and not succumb to other people's expectations?
I spend a lot of time with myself. I spend a lot of time reflecting. I spend a lot of time meditating. I spend a lot of time journaling. I just spend a lot of time getting to know Patrice. So you can't tell me about Patrice. You can't tell me what's best for Patrice. You can't come and tell me anything. You have not even a bird's eye view. You have a very limited perspective. And you being anyone, there's not a soul here that knows me better than I know me because I spend time with me. A lot of us run from ourselves. Oh, I can't meditate. It's too hard. You're afraid of what'll come up. Right? Oh, what is the, I believe the quality of our questions really does determine, right, the quality of our life. So I ask myself hard questions all the time. I don't run from it.
Give me some questions that you ask yourself that are hard.
Oh my gosh. Even in this new relationship that I'm in, which is absolutely beautiful, it is the most nurturing and nourishing thing I've ever experienced. And I've asked myself, different things about, if this thing were to happen, would you be willing to lose him? And my answer was yes. And it wasn't anything that was all super, like nothing toxic or really negative, but just a series of things, because I'm practicing the idea of not being attached to anything. I will not let my attachment to anyone or anything or any process or even things in my business make me a prisoner to this. Like, I'm building a new life. I don't want to build a prison. Steve Harvey used to tell me fame is a pretty prison. And even with my clients, you can tell people we get in this thing of like, oh, I discovered my purpose, but now we become a prisoner to this because our identity and everything that people know about us is connected. And my thing is, in order to stay free, I have to stay unattached. I have to continue to be detached from anything and anyone, because when I'm not attached, I can be honest with myself and with them. So I've just been practicing this idea, again, in small ways for years, but now I'm just in the season. It's something about a woman over 40, right? Like, now I'm just in a season where I'm getting to see what this looks like with making even bigger decisions. Like, I dropped $1 million line of business from my company last year, something that consistently created 7 figures because it did not feel right. It didn't feel aligned. And people are like, why would you do such a thing? Because I'm in the practice of not being attached to anything. Now, some would say that didn't make logical sense. I would agree. Didn't make logical sense, but it felt right. It felt good. And I didn't know I was going to meet my current partner, but because I wasn't in the activity of doing all the things associated with that particular line of business, it created space for me to date. It created margin. It created time for me to think. It created time for me to heal, to continue to grieve, right? Because just because I'm grateful that I lost the marriage doesn't mean that I didn't have to grieve too. You can hold grief and gratitude in the same decision. So it gave me space to do all of the things, right? So it was the absolute best decision for me, even if it didn't make logical sense. But even that, like, are you really going to give up $1 million line of business during the same season that you're working out all the financial stuff from your marriage? I did it. And I also honored what I was supposed to honor there. Both things happened, right? Not saying that it was easy, but the ease of knowing that I made the right choice for me, yeah, that was very present. But it's just, I'm always asking myself questions. Like, I'm always going in. And the more I go in, and again, up, I go in, like within, and then I go up, you can't tell me.
God, I think that's so powerful. And I think that's exactly why you don't stay in the logic mind. Because I think that that's also another trap, going back to where we started, that's another trap that I think that we will fall into. We go into, okay, well, what does this mean if I leave them? Let me think about the house, the kids, finances, right? And we start to try and logistically make it work. And if there are things, yeah, but whose parents are the, and then you almost like don't address
intellectualize.
Intellectualize.
That's what smart people do. We practice a lot of intellectualizing. And so you can talk yourself into anything. Your soul knows what you want to do. If you didn't add all these extra layers, and if you ask better questions, right? Because sometimes like, well, if I get a divorce, where am I supposed to live? It's like, or maybe the question is, how can I find a place that suits my new lifestyle that is within my budget? That's a different question.
It's going from what? Fear to practicality of the actual answer instead of staying in the fear-based mindset.
I try to frame my questions in a way that put a demand on my creativity.
Oh.
Because a lot of us ask questions with the doom and gloom in mind. And so we're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Right? What am I going to do? I mean, because I could have asked the question, who's going to want me? And people tried to pose the question this way. I had interviews that went viral, as you know, and they're like, who does she think she is? Like, women over 40, the statistics say that women over 40, and especially if she wants to marry a black man. And then I had this thing about they needed to be 6'2" or taller, because I am 6'2" with heels on. I am 5'10". Yeah. I have a right to desire what I desire, right?
Like, if you want a 6'5" man, God damn it,
yeah.
you can.
But people are like, who do you think you are? I mean, literally in my DMs, the statistics say, you know, and you're over 40 with a child. What man wants a woman over 40 and a black woman over 40? And they were like, you're probably so aggressive and all this stuff. I'm like, you don't even know. Like, that is so crazy. You think that clarity is aggressive. Clarity is clarity. Clarity is powerful. Clarity breeds confidence. Clarity does not make you aggressive. So because I'm clear about what I desire, now I'm aggressive and no man will want me and like all of these things. And I'm like, I'm already a walking contradiction. Like, I believe the stats, like, oh, but stats are always, there's duality to statistics. I just choose to believe that I will always be on the best side of the statistic. So when someone brings me a statistic and they're like, well, 40% of, I'm like, okay. And then, so what about the 60?
Yeah, you're like, cool. So I'm the 60. That's so fascinating.
I'll just be over here on the 60.
Is that because you're able to do that because of all the internal work that you said you've done? Because most people don't. Most people go, oh my God, I don't want to be part of the 40. Well, I guess I'm going to have to stay in this relationship.
My life has already demonstrated to me that I'm a walking contradiction, right? I'm first generation American. I'm Belizean. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles in an area called Leimert Park. I witnessed drive-bys with my own eyes. I've walked over crack pipes in the alleyway. I was there when a kid got his head blown off right across the street. I grew up on a main street, and there was a bus stop across the street, and saw brain matter splattered literally on the... I'm already a walking contradiction. The girls that I used to walk home from elementary school with were pregnant by 13 and 15, multiple children by 18, incarcerated on drugs. I ended up getting bussed out during 5th grade to go to a school on the other side of town, which is where I went to 12th grade. I went to the University of Southern California, mostly grants and scholarships. I was one of 8 Black people in my graduating class from Marshall School of Business at that time.
That's it?
I'm one of maybe a handful of Black women who actually have an MBA in financial psychology and behavioral finance. I could go on and on and on. I say those things to say, I'm already a walking contradiction. If I leaned into the statistics that people put out there throughout my entire life, I would not be here. I have been told I didn't belong in places and spaces. I have had people say things like, people like you don't do this and that. And I've been like, oh yeah, watch me. I started a business during my senior year in college, built it to a 7-figure business by 25. I did lose it all in the recession, and I had to start over and rebuild again, another 7-figure business. I'm already a walking contradiction. So when it came down to me listing my desires in my next partner, for someone to tell me that there's not enough people in the world over 6'2" and that are Black and that, you know, want to be married to someone who's over 40. And they told me all the things. And I recorded an episode. That's how I respond. I didn't even go back and forth. I recorded an episode. It was called, I Will Not Dumb Down My Desires. I will never dumb down the desires of my heart. Desires are not demands. They are desires. Had I met someone that was 5'9", 5'10", but they were kind and they were honest and they, you know, lived in integrity and they had some type of spiritual, you know, practice they were grounded in and all the other things that I had listed, perhaps, right? I don't know. Just so happens I did find someone who's over 6'3" and has all the things. So there you go.
Which we're definitely going to get to that, by the way. But before we do, I just really want to hammer home this. The idea that I'm a walking contradiction. Mm-hmm. And so using that idea, I would say that it's kind of an identity piece. probably propels you forward every time then somebody comes to you with this fear-mongering idea of you're going to be alone, you're never going to be loved, blah, blah, blah. So it's actually very powerful, I think, for people to almost identify as that and lean into it a little more, because it's a way of ignoring the naysayers.
Ignoring and embodying the energy of where you want to go. So because I believe that, because I say that, and that's the identity, I ignore the naysayers. And it's not like I'm ignorant. I understand that these numbers are valid, but I lean into the energy of possibility because I get to choose. You can choose any story you desire. Why would you choose the one that doesn't serve you? I get to choose. And as long as I have choice, I'm going to choose. I'm going to lean in this direction. I'm going to go choose the thing that feels most aligned and makes me feel most alive. We choose death. We choose to believe, right? And we don't get what we want. We get what we believe. And so I'm not saying that those things don't exist, but I get to choose. I'm always going to err on the side of choosing what feels most aligned.
And I think that that's the powerful piece, is that there is some truth into what they're saying. Yeah. It's easy when someone's just like, they're bullshit, they don't get it, like dismiss it. But there is the reality too. Your pool of selection does get smaller, right? Like if you want someone tall, your pool of selection gets smaller. And so once you start to go through, I desire all of this, and then you, let's say, compare it to the reality of the percentage, people do talk themselves out of their desire because they're like, well, the chances are slim, so let me just change what I want. Let me lower the bar. And I love that you didn't frickin' lower the bar. And so take me, let's say, one real moment, because I want people to now, let's get super freaking tactical. One real moment, someone's coming to you with something that could be very real. What if you die alone? You're in your 40s. Maybe you can't find anybody. And that fear starts to come in. What do you do? Let's say someone's listening right now, that they don't listen to the fear.
First of all, you make yourself unavailable to that type of energy and those type of people.
And what does that actually look like? Walk away? Hang up?
No, just tell them I don't receive that. That's one of my favorite lines. It's back to what I said about the story with Reagan, when people say, oh, you're not going to like her. Teenagers are awful, and teenage girls, oh my God. And I would say, oh, I respect your experience, but I don't receive that.
I respect your experience, but I don't receive it.
Yeah, I don't receive that because I know what I'm believing for. And I'm not saying that you didn't have horrible experiences dating. Like, girl, I believe you. I believe that you did. But when people would say things like that, like, what if you end up by yourself? I enjoy myself, though. What's wrong with that? I have no attachment to being partnered. It's a desire, not a demand. So I'm detached from that. So there are so many other things that create joy and love and freedom and abundance in my life, not just relationship. I desired relationship, but I was not like, I have to be in a relationship. So what would I do? So when someone would say, if someone said something like that to me, what if you are gonna die alone? I'm gonna die alone in a beautiful home. And I won't be alone because my daughter will be with me. Like, I know that my relationship with her will be intact. I experience love in relationships across the board. I have loving friends. I have loving clients. I have loving siblings. I have loving parents. I have so much love around me. And an affirmation I had to develop during that season is I am loving, I am loved, I am lovable, and I'm a phenomenal lover. And I would say that over and over and over.
Repeat it again, girl. I want to hear it again.
I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable, and I am a phenomenal lover.
Oh, that's so good.
And I would just say that over and over and over again. Well, what did that make me do? It put a demand on my creativity. It put a demand on me to nurture my relationships, to show up for people the way I wanted them to show up for me, to just be out and about, like expressing this energy of love. So I was attracting people left and right I was attracting a lot of great tall guys left and right, truly. Not necessarily for me, right? But I was attracting that because that's what I was leaning into. Even though people were like, oh, over 40, it gets hard out here. I respect if that's been your experience, but I don't receive that.
Dude, that's so powerful. I love having things like that to go to time and time again, because I can get in my own head. I can absolutely slip into people pleasing, want to be liked, want to be approved. And so having those very specific tactical words to say back really helps. I did a Google search and I just Google search, what are the reasons why people stay?
Oh.
And I'd love to hear your feedback, whether you experience them or not. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So the fear of regretting leaving. You said that earlier. What do we do when we're in the moment where we think, okay, I want to leave, I've done the work, I know why. But what if in a year from now, what if in 2 years from now, I regret it? Well, I may as well not leave then. So did you ever have the worry of the regret? Even at the beginning, before you finally got divorced?
I mean, if I'm honest, it wasn't fear of regret for me. It was really surrounding my daughter, because I didn't grow up with my father in the home. I didn't know many people who grew up with their fathers in the home. And my dream was to always get my daughter, to and through college as a family unit. And so I had doubts about whether she could take it, like how it would impact her earlier on. But then the more she matured and grew, and like I'm having conversations with her, I'm also like, this chick is tough, right? Like just her natural kind of resilience was already built. I mean, she's the one who taught me to speak up, remember? So by this time, I was more confident that she was old enough to be okay. But that fear of regret, I remember tough conversations with myself in the prayer room. So I remember coming to the conclusion that I was more afraid and staying in something that didn't serve me than I was afraid of the unknown. There's a lot of fear of the unknown. And so we again go through all the what ifs. Well, what if this and what if that? And so one of those might be like, well, what if I never get married again? What is, but you also won't be in a marriage that doesn't serve you, right? It's like, so stay married and know that you're not being honored and treated the way that you want. Like, I'd rather take my chances in the wild than stay here, right? And allow my religion and my spirituality and like my beliefs to be weaponized in a way that keeps me like contained. You know what I'm saying?
1,000%.
And so there was just like, I do that what if versus what is exercise. I tell my clients all the time. I do it all the time. When things come up and I start to get in my head, list it all out. So, well, what if the kids are upset? But what is you get to show them that they have the power to be resilient. They have the power to start over. They have the power to create a life that fulfills them. Because truly what they're seeing now, because kids are really smart. My ex and I didn't argue. We weren't having like blowouts. Well, let me be clear. We still look like a very loving family, and we were. But I also knew that there were other things that were happening in the background, but we still had a very beautiful presentation. So my daughter wasn't experiencing arguing and fighting and door slamming and all this. She never experienced any of that. She had never even seen us argue. We didn't argue. We would talk. We would have disagreements, but we didn't argue and have all this stuff. But I feared as my daughter started getting older that if I didn't do something different, I would model for her that certain things were acceptable, whether she consciously knew it or not.
It's going to be impossible to bring your confidence and badass energy to your work, your family, and your friends when you're constantly drained. But by fine-tuning your metabolic health, you can actually solve a lot of these problems and feel so much better. And there's no better tool to help you get there than Lumen. With Lumen, you can actually get real-time insights and recommendations to optimize your metabolic health. So if you want to take the next step into actually improving your health so that you can feel like a freaking confident badass, then go to lumen.com and use coupon code NYBBS, which is Nurture Your Bad Bitch Soul, to get 15% off your Lumen right now. Take advantage because this is literally the lowest price they've ever been, and it's only for you guys that are listening and watching right now. So go to Lumen, spelled LUMEN.me, and use coupon code NYBBS at checkout to get your 15% off right now. Well, kids is obviously definitely on this list that people are worried of breaking up, and the amount of people that do stay in relationships for the kids. And I know a couple of couples where it was almost like a ticking time bomb, that they were just waiting for the kid to leave so that they could get divorced.
And most kids will say, I wish my parents would just get divorced. Yes. That's what kids are actually saying. I'm very close to my daughter's friend group, and I'm the mom that people always want to come and talk to and hang out with and all that stuff. And I hear it. Their parents think that they're hiding something from them and doing a poor job at it, right? And the kids wish the parents would just do something different. It was around November of last year. My daughter sent a screenshot of something that she had posted on Snapchat. She was at home sick, and we were on a trip, my partner and I, and we sent her a bunch of like Goodwill stuff. And then her dad and his partner were taking care of her. And she put a screenshot on Snapchat, and it says something like, it's so good to see both my parents genuinely happy, and I love both of their significant others. So meanwhile, I could have stayed and been going on and on and on. But the best thing for her is to see both of us genuinely happy, right? Because when we liberate ourselves, we liberate others. And even though I was the one who had to say the thing and bring it up, he's now also in a relationship with his significant other. I adore. I think she is wonderful. I'm so grateful my daughter has another woman in her life that treats her so well and can be such a great sounding board. My partner, so grateful that she has another good man in her life who could be an example of how a woman can be loved and should be nurtured and all of those things. So sometimes we're staying for the kids. The best thing I could have done for Reagan was initiate this so that she could see both her parents thriving in a different way. While we never looked like a bad thing, she would tell me that she felt like we were just not aligned. She would ask me questions when she was little. How did you guys get together again? She could see it even though she wasn't seeing anything.
And what's that teaching her when she grows up and finds somebody? It's like, oh, well, this is what my mum's like, and my mum and dad, so this must be...
This is normal.
This is normal, yeah.
This is normal. And again, so we normalize, romanticize, we intellectualize, we over-spiritualize these scenarios, thinking that we're doing, the right thing, but sometimes we're doing more harm than good. Mm-hmm. And I grew up with a best friend whose parents walked by each other the whole time and did not speak. And we knew how to sit at the table and have separate conversations with both of them. And along with them, I learned. I knew I would go over there all the time. So I knew even when I got married, they both sent me messages separately and said, send me my own invitation to the wedding. Right? Their kids were gone, and they were still in this practice of silent treatment and stonewalling and not speaking to each other and all the things. And when we were younger, we were in middle school, and I remember all the kids just being like, would they just hang it up already? Would they just hang it up already? Like, why? So the kids know we're really doing more harm than good. And I really feel as we go on, we're in a generation now where our kids are exposed to so much. You might as well just be honest. Mm-hmm. You might as well be honest and take them on the journey at whatever age and level they are, and do your best to just explain in their language for their age, like what it means to, choose what's going to be best. And people here choose yourself and think that it's selfish. Again, when you liberate yourself, you liberate everyone. Me being radically honest allowed him to be radically honest.
Mm-hmm. I think that I've really tried to assess why the hell people think that doing self-care means you're selfish, because it is completely the opposite. So it's just like, okay, if I know and believe truly that it's the opposite, why the hell is this a belief system that is very prominent? A lot of people think that. And I think it becomes that you've lived your entire life serving other people. And so for you to feel valued and valuable, you have to be dogmatic in the idea that you give yourself over to other people. And that's what selfless looks like. Mm-hmm. And if you think about yourself, then it's selfish. And you've lived your whole life with that belief that you have to push it on other people. Otherwise, you have to start to look at your life and go, oh my God, should I have been putting myself first this whole time? And so I almost have grace for the people that don't quite see it yet.
Yeah.
And that's how I've repivoted that word selfish, because I think it is so important, to your point, that you've got to take care of yourself first. Mm-hmm. And when we're putting so many people, including your kids, and I don't have children, mm-hmm. if you were putting your children first, and I know my mum watches this show, so I'm actually speaking to her. If you put your children first, you're never going to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. What is that teaching your children?
They're only going to be children for so long.
Yeah.
They're going to be adults longer than they are mm-hmm. children. And so they need to learn the practices. They need to learn. One of my favorite things is to come into my bathroom and Reagan is soaking in the tub. She's got mute. Now, I say favorite, although it annoys me in the moment, right? I'm like, what are you doing in my bathroom again, right? But I love that she will spend an hour taking a bath, loving on herself, playing music, just, lathering up, putting all the oils and the butters and all the things. And then she, wash her hair and she's like, smell my hair. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it soft? Isn't it? And I'm like, yes, have that as a practice. Learn to take care of yourself. The best thing that I can do for her is model these things. I cannot tell her. It is not enough to just say, do as I said and not as I do. No, those days are over. Mm-hmm. We have to model it. So because she sees me nurturing myself, taking care of myself, working out, eating the way that I do, going to these different practices, going to retreats, leading women's retreats, doing all these things, it's already in her that this is a way of life, versus many of us have discovered these mm-hmm. things and we're well into our 30s and 40s. But the way that I see her navigate life with such wisdom at 16, it's because these things have just been sprinkles and seeds mm-hmm. that have been planted along the way. And I have told her for many years, when other parents in her elementary school were kind of trying to make us feel bad because I was on book tours and I was gone, and they wanted me to be a room parent where you bake the cookies and all that. And I'm like, I can pick cookies up at Publix. Baking is not my ministry. They're like, well, so-and-so's mom bakes. Okay, well, Reagan's mom writes books. Both are valid. Both have a place. You will not shame me and make me feel bad because I'm not the one that wants to bake cookies. I write books. I serve people in a different way. And I would tell Reagan when she was very little, as much as I am called to be your mom, I'm still called to be America's Money Maven, which is what I went by at that time. And both of these personalities and identities can exist. They can coexist beautifully, but I won't shame one over the other. So also being someone who would turn down things because it might interrupt parenting time or things that I want to do. So I was willing to lose on both sides. I didn't have that terminology yet, but I was willing to lose other moms' validation and the teachers who would say little things and make comments about why I was traveling or why I was gone and this and that. And then also, in other parts of my life, professionally, I lost out on some deals, and I say lost out loosely because I didn't lose anything, but I said no to certain things when she was different ages because that was my priority in that season.
Girl, I applaud you so much, because so many people in that moment where it's you're writing books, you're really focused on your career, you love your child, you're making all these sacrifices, and this mother comes along and says, well, you're not baking cookies. Most women would now feel the shame, feel the guilt, go and bake cookies, stay up till 1 a.m., hate their lives, show up angry, show up miserable, show up, agitated, because now they feel like they have to do everything. And so I want to really take a moment to applaud you on being able to set that boundary. Now, you actually speak about the fact that you were known as a money maven.
Yeah.
Well, finances, let's talk about that. That's a big thing of why people are fearful of, moving, especially, or divorcing.
Yeah.
Especially if you've built, let's say, your potential wealth together, if you're a stay-at-home wife and maybe you haven't, and now things are in his name and he's bringing home the money. So you obviously were just a badass entrepreneur making your own money. How did you navigate the idea of finances in a divorce? And anyone listening, how would you advise that they do not, or maybe you don't advise this, but don't hold back and stay in a bad relationship just because of the finances?
How I had to reconcile this for myself is the same way I did when I lost everything the first time and it was time to rebuild.
Because of the economy?
Because of the economy. Yeah. So when the recession happened, 2008, I was in real estate. And so that 7-figure business, as you know, turned into me literally scraping up change. I lost everything. Home foreclosed, cars repossessed, all the things, 10 weeks on hospital bed rest. So I racked up a big medical bill.
It's like $400,000 or something insane,
nearly $400,000 in having Reagan. So all the things, right? And this time around, what I said to myself is, if you did it before, you could do it again. That's what I said that first time. And this is what I said this time. And the other thing that I said this time was, reminding myself, Patrice, you're a creator. You're a creator. You may have to give out a lot, but you also will be able to create. Again, I'm a walking contradiction anyway, right? I could lean into, oh my gosh, this is gonna implode everything that I've built and I'm losing half of my net worth, in some respects a little more. I could go down that path, and I did. Those things happen, I did lose half of my net worth. I did lose a lot of, I would say, the financial wealth that I created, that my business generated and created. But it was also a reminder for me, my business generated and created it. So just do the things, take care of business, getting those things squared away. And then when you move forward, now it's all yours.
And that's what you kind of just told yourself, like, I can do it again. I've done it once, I can do it again. How much did you then weigh, like, almost the options, right? Where it's like, okay, well, it's going to be struggling. I have to do it all over again. I think that's a big fear with people. Like, I'm starting from scratch and I've already spent, if you're in your 40s, you're like, I've spent half of my life, like, building all of this.
Yeah, but what I thought to myself is, I've also learned so much that in this season, you can build sooner, quicker, faster, right? Because of everything that I've learned and everything that I've experienced and all of the resources that I have and connections that I have now, and all of the confidence that I have in myself now as well. It's like, yeah, I could build sooner, quicker, faster, and probably much more aligned. And so that was a part of that decision last year to release that line of business that was so profitable for my business, but just didn't feel aligned because I felt like I was being called into something different and I needed to give space for that. So last year was my worst year in business because of releasing that line. Last year was my worst year in business in 6 years.
But that seemed like it was a choice because you had a goal that you knew you were moving towards. And if you don't let go of that, then you're not able to ever reach your goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's powerful.
It was
super powerful.
And again, probably sounds illogical. I said it at an event I was speaking at and I heard the audience go, I was like, yeah. I was like, it's okay, guys. Everything's okay. Yeah. My light's still on. I still am maintaining everything, but I'm happier.
Yeah, I don't think it's illogical. I think it's illogical for people who prioritize let's say, money over happiness.
Yeah.
Like that's like, okay, if you prioritize money, and there's zero shame, I don't judge anyone for any decisions they make, but then it would seem illogical that you put your happiness first. But even for me, we would never have started Quest Nutrition if I hadn't pulled my husband aside because we were chasing money, we had the house, we were trying to keep the house, pay the bills. So we were just chasing money. And I was miserable. My husband was miserable. And it wasn't until I literally grabbed him and said, I don't care about money. I just care about our happiness. And right now, our paths are actually potentially going to damage our relationship. Because I could see where it was going. It's like neither of us are happy. It's creating a crack in our relationship. If we keep going, this is where we're going to end up. And in that moment, it was such a realization of which one am I going to choose? And I said, I really don't care about money. I care about you, I care about my marriage, and I care about being happy. And because we chased that, we started Quest Nutrition. That became $1 billion company in 5 years. So, but what if I never made that decision? What if I'd never forced myself to prioritize happiness?
But you were willing to lose.
Yeah, willing to lose. And I think that's the key.
You were willing to lose. Didn't mean you had to lose it. Didn't mean you would. It was the willingness. You detached from the idea that whatever you were doing was the only way.
Yes.
And so it created a space for you to create something else, for you to dream a new dream, for you to do something different. And it's so different than what I was originally in the marketplace doing as America's Money Maven. I'm not America's Money Maven. I had to detach from that identity. Well, what was I willing to lose? All of the talk shows, all of the places that used to bring me there because I was America's Money Maven. And when I was no longer feeling aligned with that, it's like, oh, you're just Patrice Washington. Okay, I'm just Patrice Washington. That's fine. But I had to be willing to lose that, to step into who I am. And I love this version of me.
But why do we feel like we have to put the word just? It's like, no. You're Patrice motherfucking Washington.
Well, but they said just. I'm talking about someone in particular. But and you know who you are. No.
I love the spiciness that you bring to the table, girl. But that's very important to acknowledge, though, that people want to dismiss you, or you dismiss yourself. I actually met a woman. I was in line at a buffet on holiday, and you know how you get chatting to like women like in line. You're like, oh, what do you do? And so she asked me what I did. So I start telling her, about Quest and impact theory and women of impact. And then I'm like, oh, what do you do? She says, oh, I'm just a mother. And I'm like, I'm sorry? And it really hit me that she said the word just. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, oh, I homeschool them, but, I'm just a mother. And I didn't even know her. And I was like, I'm so sorry I hope this doesn't come across rude. I was like, but why do you use the word just? I was like, you're bringing up the next generation and you're homeschooling them. Jesus.
Like, right.
I know. So as soon as I said that, you saw her demeanor completely change.
Yeah.
And then she started gloating about how she teaches her kid the math and blah, blah, blah. But we dismiss ourselves, or we dismiss other people, or we let other people dismiss us by using the word just. And I freaking hate it.
Yeah.
All right. So I actually have a few more to go through of why we stay. I would love for you to do what if versus what is as we go through this, because I love that idea. Okay. What will people think?
Ooh, that was my good one. Yeah. What if, so I'll tell you mine.
Yeah.
What if people think I just up and broke up my family? What if the women in my community don't respect me anymore because they were more attached to my identity as a wife? What if people spread rumors and lies about me and how this all came to be? Those were some of my big what ifs. What is I have a phenomenal reputation and people that know me know me. What is I have demonstrated for many years that I'm a very clear thinker, and that I spend a lot of time with my God, and I spend a lot of time in prayer. So anyone who knows me would know that I don't make any flippant choices. And what is anyone, right, who, again, is not aligned or assigned to me in this season has a right to their opinion. They have a right to their thoughts, and I have a right to my own thoughts and opinions. And those two things do not have to be the same.
God, that's so good. Okay, so some people stay because they're just hoping it's going to get better, and right now it's just a rough patch.
Oh.
That seems to hit you very hard.
Yeah, because I definitely identify with that. I believed that for many years. It was that if I just keep trying, if I just change myself, if I just change my tone, if I just, if I'm just sexier, if I just put this on, if I just do this is just a season. Because I love talking in terms of seasons. Nothing is permanent. Most things are temporal. So I love talking in terms of, this is just a season, just as a radical honesty. What is you've been saying this for 15 out of 18 years. What is you've done all the things that you could potentially do, and this person is not receiving it and still not honoring it and still not respecting it. What is if someone wanted to change, they would have changed by now. What is if they may love you, but they may not have the capacity to love you the way that you desire to be loved. What is you should never have to beg someone to love you and to cherish you and to honor you who took a vow to do that. What is you deserve to be loved the way you want to be loved, because you are loving, you are loved, you are lovable, and you are a phenomenal lover. You have the capacity to be that. What is you are whole and you are fine just as you are. And you shouldn't have to keep bending and twisting and hoping and praying and wishing that the person before you can see that. If they can't see it, they're not for you. No matter what you've built, no matter what you've created together, no matter how many children, no matter how much money is at stake, there's life after all of this.
That's actually one kind of goes into one on this list, is that, you're there because you've spent so much time already in the relationship, and people, like the poker term is pot committed, where you've spent 15, 18, 20 years of your life with somebody, and you're like, well, if I'm going to start again, was those last 15, 20 years a complete waste? And so people end up staying because they don't want the story of those past 20 years to have been, quote unquote, a waste of time.
So what if I wasted time? What is you grew so much in that season. There's so many things that you learned about yourself and the world and life. And those are lessons and blessings that you get to take with you into your next season. What is are you prepared to live this way for another 15, 18, 20 years? How would that serve you? Is that what you see for yourself, really? Is that what you desire for yourself? Is that what you dream for yourself, if you're being radically honest? What is that we love and honor and cherish the younger and former versions of ourselves because she kept us alive. Mm-hmm. She survived. She picked up new practices. She tuned into this show. She read the book. She started therapy. She started her faith practice. She is the one who made those decisions all along the way to strengthen you to get to this point to say enough is enough. So there's no loss in that. There's so many beautiful things that we got to pick up along the way. Mm-hmm. And now they all come together to work for our good. And our good is, what is there are other people out there that will love you, that will see you, that will hear you. They exist. We just have to believe they exist.
God, it's so good. And I love that framing. We get scared of losing our group of friends because maybe we couple up.
So what if the friend group no longer receives me,
yes.
essentially? What is that people who are assigned to you will come with you. Like, that's the truth. What is some relationships are seasonal, and we have to accept when a season is up. What is there are tons of people with your badass, loving self that want to be in community with you. And so this is an opportunity for you to be loved by another group of people you may not even know yet, right? And yeah, what is, those are the what is.
This whole practice that we just did of like what if versus what is, people can now take that at home and do it themselves. With any reason that maybe you're giving yourself, if you're listening right now, any reason they may be giving themselves to stay, to play that game. And I really love how you do that. It's very clear and very honest, and it really brings into light that you focus on, I said it earlier, right? You focus on the fear versus focusing on what could be if you make this change. Now, in talking through everything that we have, I love the idea, like at 40, let's face it, you're not even halfway through your life. I plan to live till I'm at least 100. So at 40, I'm like, I'm just freaking getting started. But part of the fear that a lot of people do have is, you know, well, I'm 40, I'm over the hill. That was the phrase that we got growing up. You never came to that. But dating in your 40s obviously must be different now because you hadn't dated for like 18 years.
Well, the truth is I had never dated.
Oh, because you guys were friends first.
Yeah, we were friends that turned into a relationship. But I mean, think about this. I met him at 20. And then by 21, 22, we started dating. So we went together, you know, we go together, right? So we
really
went
showing
together.
your age now,
right,
girl.
right. And then the natural next step was to get married and all those things. But I never really had a frame of reference for dating. You know, in your early 20s, you don't know what the hell dating is. Like, you're kicking it, you know, like you kick it with a few people or whatever, but you're not really, what I say now and what my experience has been these last few years is, for me, dating was collecting data. And I was learning, who are you in relationship to others, in relationship to men? And I was learning, what do you need, want, and desire? So I had my ideal partner list, but then you have to go from this is a list to like, this is how things happen in real life. And so I just used dating to collect data. So I wasn't dating at all with this intention of, you know, or are you my husband? Are you my husband? Are you my husband? Because I wasn't attached to the idea of getting remarried. I was just like, I'm here to date and to collect data. And so in going on dates with multiple men, I started to learn, I don't like that. I had never seen it before. I had only been with the same person almost 20 years. So I'm like, one thing about it, my husband was not verbally like disrespectful. We didn't do that. So a man who like talked down to me or say something crazy, I'm like, oh no, I don't do that. Like, I don't know what you think is going on here. But so I met different personality types. I will say it's not that everyone that I went on dates with were like great guys and it was all roses and peaches. I don't say that dating is horrible because I'm not attached to the idea that anyone I date is going to be my husband. I'm literally just collecting data for myself. Like, I'm learning that men do these different things, or I'm like watching how people move, how they respond, how they text. Like, I literally just had fun. I was just collecting data.
I love that. And then I heard you also say you'd put like in your list of all the things that you want, that you put someone that makes me laugh or someone that tells jokes. And then you went on a date with somebody, if you don't mind actually expressing this, because this is super powerful, because we write a list of the things that we want, our values, our wants, our desires, and then we either treat it like this is the gospel, and if someone doesn't meet every single thing on this, then forget it, I'm never going to give them a second chance. Or we go, hey, it's a bit of a list. They kind of make me laugh, the jokes. But I love how you even go into the little details of like, what does that actually mean? If you don't mind explaining that.
So my original ideal partner list, I wrote on a flight from New York to San Antonio. I was speaking in both places. And so I'm on the flight, I get this download, and I felt like my spirit was like, you're not going to get what you want because you don't even know what you want. You're not very clear. I was like, yes, I do. Talking back like we do. I'm like, yes, I do. And it's like, prove it. So I take out my phone and I start writing. And I'm like, ooh, let me really think. Like, let me sit with this. And then I start writing. And after it got to several, I was like, I remember seeing one of the Instagram girls said, you shouldn't have more than 3 things on your list. And then my spirit was like, and she was not talking to you. You were her audience, not her assignment.
I love how like your spirit and an Instagram random person are arguing with each other.
Coming together. And I was like, okay. So then I keep going deeper. So my list begins with stuff like kind, honest, integral. Like I did say sense of humor, like a great sense of humor, loves to make me laugh. And so I go down this entire list. It's like over 20 things, right? So that's why people were mad. It's like 27 or something like that. And so there's all these things, but they're characteristics. They're like, it's all character stuff. Later, when I looked at the list, Lisa, I was like, oh, I just wrote myself.
Huh?
It's really just who I am. So I'm not asking for anything that I'm not. Like I asked for someone who was self-aware, someone who's into personal development, like in some form or fashion. Either you've been in therapy or you're not closed off to therapy if you need to deal with things, like someone who honors boundaries. Like, so it wasn't like, oh, you want too much. It was like, no, this is who I am. This is what I also bring, right? So I get to San Antonio. I speak at an event. I meet this guy, 6'3", gorgeous, nice beard, bald, handsome, like all the things. We hang out. Funny as heck when I first met him. Then we hang out. When we hang out, I realize his jokes are mean-spirited. They're always at the expense of someone else. I didn't like the way that made me feel. Because if you make a joke about someone and they don't laugh, that didn't feel good to them. And I realized that he had a practice of making other people feel small to make himself feel better, but he could put it in a joke. And I was like, ooh, you need to be more intentional about that. So I stopped talking to him and I edited that bullet point. It's humorous, makes me laugh, but is not mean-spirited. Mm-hmm. And so as I was dating and I was having these interactions, I was collecting data. Oh, when I said, self-aware, I was supposed to say, and willing to do something about things that they become aware of, right? Because sometimes you're self-aware, like, oh, I know I have an anger issue. That's self-awareness, technically. But like, so you're not going to do anything about it? You're not working on it? You're not working through it? Self-aware and willing to do something about, right? Things that come up that are not. So as I went like just on dates and talking to people, I just got more and more clear. I just continued to get more and more clear. But the initial list was wonderful. It got me started because when people really showed that they didn't have the capacity for any of those things, because I'm not going, are you my husband? Are you my husband? Because I'm not trying to attach marriage and long-term partnership to every person, I was willing to lose. So there's no attachment I'm willing to lose. I'm willing to be like, oh, well, thank you. That was a nice day. Would you like to go out again? No, I wouldn't. But thank you so much. And I also didn't feel like I needed to give a bunch of explanation. I would leave people with their dignity because radical honesty doesn't mean that you're mean. So I would leave people with their dignity and just be honest about, I just don't really feel like we're aligned, but I think you're awesome, or I'm sure somebody else will find you entertaining or whatever, and I would just let it go. But that practice and having the list really allowed me to create governing decisions. Sherry Salata taught me the term governing decisions. And that was so powerful for me in dating because I didn't have to romanticize any individual person. I could stick to the governing decisions about my needs, wants, and desires, and just how I wanted to be treated, not just in romantic relationship, but even in friendships, in any relationship. So I have this like list of governing decisions, just like I don't tolerate disrespect in relationships anymore. I did that for 18 years.
Did you then even write down what disrespect looks like to you?
Yeah. Yeah. On what would have been my 15th wedding anniversary, I woke up and wrote vows to myself. I have a journal from that time period that probably has like 6 pages of vows that I wrote to myself. Wow. And it was like, Patrice, I vow to honor, respect, and protect you. I will cherish you always. I vow to never allow you to lose yourself in a relationship again. I vow to never allow you to romanticize anyone in your life. You will never intellectualize or normalize behavior that does not feel good to you. Like I just went through all of this stuff and I wrote these vows. I let it pour out, just tears streaming and pour out. And by the time it was done, it was about 6 pages. And so because I got that out and because I have the ideal partner list and because I had set these like governing decisions, didn't matter who it was or what they looked like, if it didn't feel right, I was no longer dismissing feelings. I was no longer being like, oh, you're too this, or you're too picky, or you're too, no, I'm not. I deserve what I desire. No, I'm not too picky. This is what I desire. And if I'm not going to have that, I can still create a beautiful life by myself. That's the thing. I'm not attached to getting married. I'm not attached to having a life partner. I'm very capable of building a beautiful life full of love and joy and freedom and peace and abundance by myself, right? So I told you I was dating a guy.
That's what I was going to lead to, like having done
I did all that.
All of that work, girl.
I did all that work.
Yeah.
That was January 2023. I did that list. And like late February, I meet someone, 6'6", 6'6". I was like, ooh, look at God, exceeding expectations. 6'6", very muscular, fit, very accomplished, philanthropic, business owner, speaker as well, entrepreneur. We know people in common. We look like a beautiful postcard of Black love, right? All the things. And within weeks, I recognized the love bombing. So I was just paying attention to it. We didn't live in the same city, so there's distance, right? But we would meet up in places. And within weeks, I was just paying attention. And I was like, that doesn't resemble the way I want to be loved. This doesn't. We had a few conversations. He tried to talk in circles and basically gaslight a bit.
And you noticed
And
that.
I noticed it. Very manipulative. And I ended up sending him a voice memo. I asked him to talk, and he made up something. And so I just sent him a voice memo, and I said, hey, based on the way I have seen you operate these weeks, I don't believe that we're aligned. I said, I heard Iyanla Vanzant say, you don't get to tell people how to love you. You get to see how they love and decide if you want to participate. And I have decided that I am not interested in participating. This does not honor the governing decisions that I have for myself, and I'm out. I wish you the best. God bless you, and deuces. And I sent him the voice memo and went to brunch with a friend in Orlando, and I just left it at that. And had I not been doing this work because of who he is and because of how beautifully he presents and because of how the people who had already seen us together are like, oh my gosh,
well, that's what I said when you sent me a photo.
Yes. But ultimately, my desires, my governing decisions, my practices, my practice of collecting data, having these things allowed me to move about the cabin freely. One of the biggest fears, I believe, of people who have been in long-term relationships and towards the end, they're like, what if I choose someone similar? Or what if I don't choose well again? Doing these practices have allowed me to choose better and better and better. But you have to go through it. You can't be on the sidelines like looking out there saying, oh my gosh, there's pee in the dating pool. I'm like, not in my pool.
Girl, I love that. The way that you broke that down, I'm going to go back to how you show up is so strong. So a lot of people, maybe myself included, I'm not quite sure, I have to think through it first, would have let me just try and distance myself from him. Let me just ignore his phone. Because addressing the reality of that dynamic is sometimes so uncomfortable that it's easier to run, or it's easier to ignore, or it's easier to stay. It's almost like one of those. But the fact that you didn't just ghost him and you didn't stay, but you left a message that was so real, authentic, and transparent and radically honest, I really believe that's what allowed you to then go to brunch with your girlfriends after. Because the amount of people, myself included, I would have sat there, I would have ummed and ahed, and then afterwards I would have felt guilty. I was like, should I have sent it? Should I not? And I would have second guessed myself. And that freaking spiral in my mind would have just kept going. But I love that you were just like, I did this and I went to brunch with my girlfriends.
I did. It was actually my coach, the same coach who originally asked me the willing to lose question. I actually went to lunch with her. And if I'm radically honest, I cackled about sending that voice memo because I was so proud of myself. I was like, let me tell you what I just did. And I told her about the events leading up to it and how I chose to honor myself and not romanticize him because the world is already romanticizing him, right? I was like, and I'm choosing not to romanticize him. I'm very clear about what I experienced and what I witnessed. And in the voice memo, I also said, this does not look like love in my book. And I listed the things. This does not and I wasn't mean. I wasn't nasty. I was very pleasant. I was just very clear, right? And I was so proud of myself. And my coach was so proud of me. And I'm so proud of my clients, like when I see them making these types of choices, because we often go to DEFCON 1. Like, if I do this, everything is gonna explode, right? And it's like, a lot of times it literally just ushers you into the next thing. It's not even as dramatic as we make it. He didn't make it dramatic. He didn't make it dramatic at all. But what could he say? I was very clear.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. He can't call you emotional. He can't call you erratic, right? Because that's also the thing. We all know that maybe we've met that guy where we asked them about their ex and they're like, oh, she was crazy.
Oh, go-to. Yeah.
The go-to.
That's what he said.
Yeah, exactly. But like the fact that you were able to do it with such dignity, such respect, such clarity, really does allow you to move on with respect in yourself as well. Because I think that's a big key.
And trust. It gave me the greatest sense of trust. Like, ooh, Patrice, look at you. You are free to move about the cabin free. Like you can move about and date and enjoy dating, enjoy being, doted on. I've been on hot air balloon rides. I've been on helicopter rides. I've dated, okay? I've been doing the things. And I could trust myself to have a good time and know I'm still not attached to the idea of being your partner.
All right, so here we are, now having gone through all of this. You are now, you mentioned it earlier, with a very loving man.
Very.
So talk to me about what set you up for that and what were the things that you identified with him with such massive green flags that allowed you to continue?
Oh, well, when we first met, first of all, I had been like, I am not an online dating person. I was just like, no, I don't need to do that. I meet people out and about in the airport, all this stuff.
Well, our age, it's weird, right?
Yeah, it was never a thing. It wasn't a thing back in the day. So, and there's a day in particular that I'm texting back and forth with a girlfriend and we're just like talking and she's like, have you ever been on such and such dating app? And I'm like, girl, no, I do not do dating apps. She's like, you should try. And by then I had like really embraced the idea that dating is just collecting data and fun. So why not create another pool of people to just have fun with, right? And fun is going on dates, guys. Like, I know some people take fun as like, oh yeah, sleeping with everybody. It's like, no, you're going on dates, you're meeting for coffee, you're going on walks, you're taking your dogs play, like literally just meeting people. And so this is 5:00 in the evening. True story, Lisa. I'm going back and forth with my girl, Connie. And so she's like, just do it. I'll do it with you. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, we'll just have fun. 6:00, 6 something, I make my profile. Never made a dating profile, but my Instagram girls are in my head, right? So I'm like a full body picture, a face picture, a no makeup, a little video, dressed up, dressed down. I answer the prompts, I do it. So maybe 40 minutes or so, I have my dating profile and I'm like, publish or whatever. I'm like, whew, okay. First person I match with at 7:30 p.m. is my current partner.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
First person.
Wow.
Now I was already going on dates with other people. We were both radically honest. We both had been in long-term marriages and we're like, yeah, we're just like meeting people, having fun, like finding friends in the city type of thing. And I'm like, this is where I am. I'm dating multiple people. I'm not necessarily looking for a husband or my life partner and all this. He's like, wonderful. Me either. Like, wonderful. We set up our first date for like a week later, but that entire week we text and we talk and FaceTime. It was great. And it was just instant connection and chemistry But what really did it was his consistency. He has been consistent this entire time, from then until now, and it's been over a year. He's been consistent this entire time. The way that he loves is consistent. The way that I could literally be myself. One of the things on my list is I want someone who, the more they get to know the real me, the more they love me, the real me. I also spelled my name differently, so he couldn't necessarily Google me at first. So he really didn't even know much about what I did professionally. We didn't really talk about professional stuff. We talked about family. We talked about, backstory, children, dreams, trips, like what would you do? We talked about so many things under the sun, and we just developed a really great friendship, and we continued to date other people for like 3 months. And then we went on a date, one of our dates, and we had a blast. Like, we sat there laughing and talking for hours. We got on that restaurant's nerves. Like, we were just so into each other, like feeding each other cake and like all the things, had such a wonderful time. And then a few days later, he was going on a date. Now, by then, we know that we're dating multiple people. He never brought it up, though. When we were together, and we were very respectful of the fact that we knew that we had other things going on, not my business. And, but sometimes I'd help him get ready for the date. So he's on FaceTime and I'm like, wear that sweater. Like literally, like talking him through. I talked to him the entire way there. The original destination for his date did not work out. And the young lady suggested that he follow her. So he ends up at the restaurant that we went to, seated in the exact same place in the window of that restaurant in the same way.
That you guys had gone to on your date?
That we had gone to maybe 3 days before. And is like, can I come see you? And I'm like, what's going on with your date? Like what's happening? Anyway, he ends up coming to my house and tells me the story about how he ended up at the same restaurant, the same seat, same window, and that he sat there thinking, I would rather be with Patrice. And he said, you don't have to change anything that you're doing, but I know that I don't desire to continue to date other people, but I respect what we talked about. And there was another guy I had been dating who every other day he'd be like, when are you gonna stop talking to those other guys? I said, you're not honoring what we originally talked about, because I've been radically honest since the beginning. But he wanted to like have a partner. And I was like, I'm not ready for that. That's just not the desire of my heart in this season. And you kept saying you understood, but you're not acting like you understand. So that was going on in the backstory. So anyway, my guy came and he said that. And I was like, you know what? I have been thinking the same thing. I just told my friend, I'm wasting time going on all these dates, because it was the wanting to be sure, because I am like a homebody by nature. I love to be home. I really appreciate monogamy. Like, I was in a long-term marriage for that reason. Like, I love, the sanctity of like a committed relationship, but I knew I owed it to myself because I had never dated as an adult, as a real adult woman. And so I didn't want to rush in to just locking in with him, but it was so clear from the first time that we talked that we would probably end up being a thing, but neither of us forced that on the other. And so, yeah, after about 3 months, we decided that we were done dating other people and we were just going to lock in. And so we've been locked in and it's been beautiful. My daughter absolutely adores him. He adores her. That was one of the things on my list. Someone who had to have a great relationship with their own children, if they had children, and that they would be willing to treat my daughter as their own. And he treats Reagan as his own. Absolutely.
Girl, that story's because you're my friend and I know you, and just so hearing that story just like warms my heart so much as your friend, but also to know where we started this conversation and to know that where you said, yeah, me and my husband, we said that there's no plan B, even when it didn't serve me, even when it was creating a terrible relationship and you weren't happy. For you to take us through these last few hours and really be able to point out what you did in order to recognize this wasn't serving you, make a different decision, show up differently, do the work, the foundation, and then be able to say you're in a happy relationship. Now look, You may not last. I totally get that. I don't know where your future ends up. But the fact that you were able to make that pivot is so beautiful. And that's, I really want to come full circle now. I want people to just hear that whatever situation you're in right now, you don't have to stay there. It can look differently, but you have to do the work. But the depths of the work that you did in order to pivot, make the change, not succumb to your situation, and actually start to build towards happiness again. I hope everyone hears literally that story.
Can I tell you how this changed my life?
Yeah.
It changed redefining wealth. So I had always just described it as the 6 pillars of wealth and all these things. But what I learned, and you just broke it down, but I'm going to give you the terminology that I now use. We cannot redefine wealth for ourselves. And you know my definition of wealth is the original definition of wealth, the condition of well-being and happiness. It was never money and material possessions. So I've been on a crusade for 6.5 years already with the message of redefining wealth. But here's what I learned in this season. We now have the continuum of redefining wealth. This is what I revealed at Redefining Wealth Live. You cannot redefine wealth until you awaken. An awakening means to arise from slumber. And the truth is, many of us have been asleep at the wheels of our life. We have just been on autopilot. We have been going along to get along. We have been like, oh, I don't want to make any waves. I don't want anyone to be upset. This is what I was told I should do. This is how I was told I should be. All the things. So we are just like on autopilot. Going. You cannot redefine wealth for yourself until you awaken to what no longer serves you. You have to be radically honest. And most of us are not radically honest because then we would have to get the guts to do something about it. So it's better to just keep romanticizing and rationalizing like most of us do. So once you awaken and you're like, if I'm radically honest, this doesn't serve me. I'm not happy. I'm unfulfilled. I'm living in fear. Like I'm living someone else's dream, which is now my nightmare. This is not serving me. Then you can get to, if you're honest there, then you can get to redefining. Redefining is like, if that wasn't serving me, what would? It's my ideal partner list. Now I get to redefine what love looks like for me. It's me challenging some of the things that I adopted or that were indoctrinated in me through my religion, through the churches that I went to in particular, to the pastors that I had to redefine what God really meant for me, what that looked like for me. So you can't redefine until you awaken. So you redefine, you say what you actually desire, and then you keep leaning into that. You keep leaning into that, which is what we've been talking about. I understand what the statistics say. And I also understand that this is the desire of my heart and I'm due the desires of my heart. So I'm going to keep leaning here. I'm going to visualize around these things. I'm going to put myself in spaces where I can experience these things. I'm not available to all the shit that other people talk about. No, this is what it has to be. Not for me. I don't receive it. I'm a walking contradiction. I'm redefining, right? And once you redefine, redefining is really, I say it this way, awakening. A lot of us have a lot of self-awareness. We're aware of what we don't like, but we don't take the time to really get deep with what we do like and what we do want. That's soul awareness. What we do in redefining is soul awareness. What does my soul want? If I'm not policing it, if I'm not trying to force it in the box, if I'm not keeping myself in a pretty prison that I created, what does my soul genuinely want? When we start to be able to list those things out and give voice to them, now we move on to actualize. Actualizing is so important because if you don't walk this out, you're gonna feel worse than when you didn't know. Because remember, ignorance is what's bliss. Acting like you don't know, you can skip around. But once you know, and then you're soul aware, it becomes intolerable. That's why I could not keep going. Because at first I didn't know it was that big of a deal. It's like, oh, everyone's marriage has rough patches. Oh, everybody experiences this. Oh, I use so many generalizations to intellectualize, right? I could keep myself ignorant. And then when that was like not a thing anymore, and I had to embrace that there could be something else, all this other stuff becomes intolerable. And I think that's what you see in me is like, it's intolerable. It's not just like, oh, I choose to do. No, those things are intolerable. I cannot just sit with it when I know the truth. But now I have to get the guts to go do something. So I surround myself with a coach. I surround myself with supportive friends. I surround myself with people. I make sure that I'm very aware of what I'm listening to, what I'm taking in, like where am I getting my information from? Like my faith practices, all of those things come into like that actualization piece. And it's not that it's perfect, but I had a client say this at Redefining Wealth Live. She said a step forward is still territory acquired.
A step forward is,
One step forward is still territory acquired. So people want to get all the way to the good stuff. And you're just, the only way you get over here is to take one step after another. I filed for divorce. I rewrote the vows to myself. I made the ideal partner list. I used the what if versus what is over and over again. I re-upped on my coaching. I created intentional time to spend time with girlfriends and all that. Like one step after another is what gets you over here. That's the process of actualizing. It's not like it's a one and done thing. But this continuum, right, is what redefining wealth is now. So when I let go of that entire line of business, it's because I was being ushered in to deeply think about this. People always like, what did you do? So I have to like, what did I do? What are those practices? What are those beliefs I had to shed? What are the rituals I created? And that's more what redefining wealth is now, because wealth is the condition of well-being and happiness. So if you're sleep at the wheel of your life, more than likely, you may not actually be happy. You're just tolerating.
And that is not a place to live in just tolerance.
Yeah.
Go, if people want to go deeper into this new way of you thinking and coaching, which is freaking amazing, where can people follow you and all the amazing things that you're putting out there?
I would say just download the Redefining Wealth app. In January, I launched an app so that I could really be with my people. I just do not want to be a slave to the algorithms. I want my people to be able to see my stuff and interact with me without all the noise, you know, a lot of the unsupportive voices. So I'm doing lives and coaching and showing up in my app.
If you want to learn how to go from broken and divorced to a badass with utter freaking confidence, then click here right now.
Getting back up, I didn't have any other option, right? If I didn't make some of the decisions to, overcome being a child, having a